Hello out there in cryptocurrency land. Welcome back to Real Crypto, where we take the markets one leg at a time while keeping the market cycle in mind. And Bitcoin's been a little interesting here as of late. Also Ethereum, also a majority of the market. We just finished up a little mini altcoin rally. I hope you guys were able to catch something in the power hour. We caught quite a few of the coins that pumped. Not all of them. Some of them came out of nowhere, but others we were able to telegraph through the charts. But I'm not liking what I'm seeing in the charts with Bitcoin and Ethereum right now. Mainly Ethereum. So this is what we've been talking about for the past, I don't know, week or so in the power hour. We actually have a head and shoulders on Ethereum. Fairly well-defined neckline, which we've actually already broken. We had it at about the 114 level. 114 and change. It's upward sloping, so it's not an exact price. But we've had 114 as our alert level. That alert triggered yesterday. And Ethereum has just been extraordinarily weak as of recently. We've actually noted the weakness in Ethereum all the way back here on January 6th, where the market had a big rebound. That's actually where Bitcoin broke right here, and Ethereum never rallied with it. Ethereum never rallied. It was already a little bit higher, so you think Ethereum would have broken into highs, but it did not. It very, very minimal price action. And as a matter of fact, the only thing you see here is red volume for the most part. Couple little green pops, we're going to get that. But generally, it's been just weakness upon weakness upon weakness. Now, we have another trend line that's been holding us down in Ethereum right here. This one coming out of basically nowhere and literally holding price down, just like his hand on its head. And Ethereum's being pushed in the water right now. That's really what this looks like. Unless a large bull comes in and buys us out of this, Ethereum probably in the near future will crack and have a move lower. Now, Ethereum with this head and shoulders pattern has a target of approximately 66 bucks, mid 60s. That's where this head and shoulders target puts Ethereum. So undercutting the recent low, potentially double-digit Ethereum, which is quite amazing when you think about the run Ethereum's had. Up to $1,400, back down to sub $100, kind of boggles the mind a little bit. And let's talk slightly about Bitcoin as well. I'm going to take a broader picture of BTC. So we've been talking about in the power hour over the past, I'd say 3 weeks, ever since we started this drop here, I've been talking about a symmetrical triangle forming. Once this inverted head and shoulders failed up here, my thought process was, okay, well, where does the market take us next? If this is not an inverted head and shoulders that breaks out, what could the pattern be? And the only thing that really kind of made sense, because this is a very well-defined top, would be a symmetrical triangle. So I kind of arbitrarily drew a trend line. I think it was a little bit lower. We had this low, and then we ended up having this low, and I'm like, well, this could qualify as the low for this symmetrical triangle. So ever since this low has been in about a week ago, we've been using this on the charts and kind of using this to guide us. Now, Bitcoin, in a very similar fashion to Ethereum, is extraordinarily weak. We've seen the bounces come in since the lows, and a couple of bounces, and since then, really nothing. Volume's been very dry. Volume is almost non-existent. You really got to zoom in to kind of see the pops, and there have been a couple of green pops, but zero sustained rallies for Bitcoin. I would not consider this a sustained rally by any stretch of the imagination. You got a stop taker outer right there, whatever you want to call that. They're stop hunting. You get that a couple more times with a series of higher lows. And then, everyone's always willing to sell. Willing to sell, willing to sell, willing to sell, willing to sell. And that hasn't really changed. We do have a couple of bottoms right here, which has formed this bottom trend line. But we're really living in the lows here. We're not living in the highs. So when you're in these types of symmetrical triangles, when I'm living at highs, I'm looking for breakouts. When I'm living in lows, I'm actually looking for breakdowns. That's kind of how I look at these things. So right now in BTC, I'm not seeing a lot of bullish action. Volume is declining greatly. Even all these bounces, you can see, look at the green volume here on this bounce, very muted compared to prior bounces. Even this most recent one this morning barely registers on the volume chart. It's negligible volume. So BTC may just roll over at some point in the near future, probably with Ethereum as well. I'm not sure which one's going to lead lower, but we don't have any major leading coins right now that are really holding highs. The only kind of exception to that would be Tron, and this could be due to its recent dealing with BitTorrent. but I don't know exactly. We don't quite get to know why coins run. In the end, you have to let the price tell you what to do. And in Tron right now, we're actually looking at two trend lines. You see them on my chart right here. And this is a dollar chart. This is not BTC. I'll look at BTC in a second. But against the dollar, we've got this immediate trend line that formed and this longer term trend line that formed. And so if this breaks handily, then, you know, it's going to be game over for Tron. But we have a couple scenarios we've been discussing. Tron could get healthy and continue going. But like anything with big news in crypto that's in the last year plus, everything peters out at some point. We saw that with EOS. We saw that with a number of coins. All those runs have petered out. We went over those today, as a matter of fact. So let's go check out Tron against BTC. So Tron resting as it's trying to break into highs. It came right up to the high against Bitcoin and stopped. That's fairly normal action. Now it's pulling back on albeit lower volume. My volume aggregation tool isn't up here like it should be. There you go, guys. All right, so volume aggregation, a little bit mixed. Now, if you guys don't know about my volume aggregation tool, this is a tool that I developed that shows you accumulation and distribution, okay? And so throughout here, you can see a lot of accumulation. The green means buying, the red is selling. These are real numbers. These are not implied numbers. So right now, you're seeing a mixture of buying and selling on this next leg up. They're kind of coming in. There's some distribution as it gets higher. They're still taking it higher. In the end, you have to see who wins. But here's the trend lines for Ethereum against BTC. You can kind of go ahead and draw these yourself. 717, this was a newsletter alert level that we had out for Tron. So Tron's doing okay, but that's really one of the only ones. We were looking at Link for a long time, and then it really gave up the goose a couple of days ago. It started behaving, it was behaving really nicely, cupped right up. Volume was okay, not great, but okay. And then you can see the distribution in the volume aggregation tool just really start to take over. And it's not super aggressive, but it's enough to bring the price down. There's just a lack of interest in Chainlink coin right now for whatever reason. So, you know, we bowed out a few days ago, and now it's kind of meandering back. This was one of the ones you saw in, I think, my last video, or maybe the video before we talked about in Chainlink. And I think it was lower, and it did make a run at highs since then. It made new highs, poked into all-time highs on the daily. We talked about a blue sky breakout, and it attempted one right there. We had a good move there from 1,200 up to about 1,500 or 15,000, excuse me, 12,000 to 15,000, and now it's coming back down. So this is going to have to make, this is going to have some more basing behavior before we can get back into it. All right, guys, so going back to Bitcoin. So right now, BTC not in a good place. If you look at the daily time frame, this just looks like a symmetrical triangle breakdown after a breakdown. It looks like a bear flag. If you were to invert this, which you can do that somewhere, invert scale, there we go. If you invert this, it looks like a breakout, doesn't it? Looks like you're gonna buy this, it's gonna go higher. Unfortunately for Bitcoin, that means we head lower. So until something changes drastically in BTC, same old, and we're gonna end up with more bearish action. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. If you guys have long positions, I would definitely have a stopping point where you're saying I'm going to get out of this position. If you're layering into BTC as we go lower, that's perfectly fine. Be prepared for some more cheaper buys coming up. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. Again, if you do like my content, please feel free to check out my website and my services, real-crypto.com here, and feel free to join our Power Hour. We go over the charts every single day, and you can sign up for that right there in my services page. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time.